Today, the internet is facing a privacy crisis, and that's happening because people are losing their username and password. That means their credentials in many different situations. Now, I'll explain two reasons why people are losing their usernames and passwords on the internet, and one reason why they are not losing their username and password, and how that one reason is actually promoting a false sense of security. So, last few years, there have been a lot of knowledge which users have gained, and they know that if they have to access any website which is important for them, especially when they are logging in, they have to use a website which has got HTTPS protocol, and you will see a lock on your browser address bar which says that. Now, this has actually created a sense of security because you feel that if you're typing your username and password, and as that username and password goes to that site, nobody will steal it. And frankly, that is correct. It is impossible for anybody to do what is known as a man in the middle attack on that username and password. But what happens is that once it reaches that site has no choice but to unwrap that protected username and password and then cross check that with their database which they have kept inside their own server there. And there lies the problem, because what is happening is hackers are coming in silently from the back door somewhere, and they are attacking some of these sites, and they are stealing these username and passwords from there. And when such theft happens on the net, it is impossible to detect that not impossible, sorry. It's difficult to detect that whether such a theft has really happened. It's not like in the real world when a robber comes in and breaks into your house, you would see evidence of a broken door or some glass pieces and things like that. But on the net, when hackers come in and steal the database from such sites, many times they actually don't even leave a trace. And sometimes the data which they have collected, they are waiting for the right opportunity for the data to be misused. So quite often, just as we speak now, for all you know, your username and password may have been stolen and would get used at some inappropriate times. There is a second reason how usernames and password get stolen, which is when that username and password gets into the site, it is actually has to be unwrapped, because they have to cross check whether that username and password which given by you is correct or not, and only then they will be able to access it. So there is a brief period inside the server where it is actually unlocked for a very brief moment. So if there are programmers working for that particular company, and if that company has not implemented internal security measures, there is a chance that some of those employees over there is able to pick out that unwrapped password and unwrapped username and then silently store those away. This is happening, and especially in smaller companies where there may be disgruntled employees or people who are being ill-treated, and they don't like the boss or whatever. And when they harvest such username and passwords, these username and passwords are then collected and sold on the black market. There's a whole cottage industry out there, and there are illegal sites which is in the dark net, accessed through the Tor browser, where such usernames and passwords are getting sold. So there are two very strong ways by which your username and passwords are going away. In the second method, your plain username and passwords are going away. In the first method, where people are just attacking the database, there is a small chance that that company has implemented some security measures which are so strong that the thief is unable to decrypt that hashed password, because username and passwords are not usually kept directly as plain text. Instead, there is a process called hashing, which is a way to protect that password inside the database. But even then, what has happened is that users like you and me, we are actually tired of giving username and passwords everywhere. So what have we done? We have gone and used the same username and password at that important site also, and at that simple site which doesn't have proper security measures. So what thieves are doing is that they are actually stealing the password from a weaker site and then figuring out what the passwords are, and then they are going to use those in the stronger site because you happen to use the same username and passwords everywhere. So this is a mess, and last couple of years this there's been a huge rise of loss of data just because the access, that is the usernames and passwords, are getting stolen in this manner. And sadly enough, it is because you get that false sense of security that you have that HTTPS access and there's a lock over there. So you get a feeling that at least your credentials will not go away. And that's only partially true, as I explained. So, what's the answer? And the answer is homing space. Now, homing space is a very simple and elegant system, and our invention allows users to authenticate themselves on websites. And for the merchant, when they authenticate their users, they store only the usernames, they don't store any passwords for those users. Now, this sounds little unbelievable, so we'll explain that in a next video. But imagine this, when a thief comes to a website, they really do not get a paired username along with the password. They get a list of usernames, but they don't have access to the password, so they can't actually access the account. The account is password protected, all right, but the passwords or the entry system is actually with the user and not with the website itself. And if they were to enter that website, they'll have to go and steal the mobile phones of those users to get in, because homing space works entirely in the phone browser of those users. We'll be explaining that in detail, and that is how we hope to get this problem fully solved. Thank you so much.